What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. On today's video, we'll be turning door cards into this, to give it more of that R34 GTR V-Spec 2 black interior look. Alright, stay tuned. So obviously with everything going around in the world, obviously you guys know about the pandemic. We gotta be safe and stay home. So luckily I had, just before everything shut down in the city, I had gone to the local fabric store and picked up some fabric. With the fabric that I picked up, I made sure that I had everything that I needed before I pretty much quarantined myself at home. The material that I ended up going with and the material that I was looking for was to mimic the R34 GTR door panels that obviously came in black in the V-Spec 2. The material that I ended up finding was called waffle cone, obviously getting it in black. First thing I did was gently heat up the area with a heat gun. You can use a blow dryer as well. And that's just to loosen up the factory adhesive that's obviously been on the vehicle for the last 20 years. And just to make it a little easier when I take off the old material. And after that, you just want to clean up the area. So I ended up using painter's tape. It was just something that was lying around the house. Obviously, if you have 3M tape, go ahead and use it. But for a job like this, you just want to make sure that you're taping around the area that you're applying the adhesive, just because you don't want to overspray. As you're applying your tape, you also want to make sure that you're not tucking all the way to the bottom of the groove or covering the groove itself, where you're going to be tucking the material in the little slots, just because you want adhesive actually in those slots. So when you do tuck it, it's grabbing onto something. Once you're done your taping, go grab something with plastic or even like a flathead or a butter knife, just so you're tucking all the tape that possibly flaring out a little bit and not all the way on the door itself. Now on to mocking your material. Lay it right next to each other and over, and make sure you cut a little more than you need. It's obviously a little easier to trim down to obviously adding more, because obviously you're going to need a little more material and start all over again. So make sure when you mock it up and you measure, cut it a little bigger, then lay it on the door panel itself and start trimming down to little spots that you need to, because a little more is always going to be a little handier. So I did end up grabbing two different adhesives just because I was curious on how the 3M would be, but I also heard that, you know, the Proform is pretty good. So I ended up grabbing both of those, but the one I ended up going with was obviously the Proform, just because I found that it was a little stickier and it was grabbing onto the material with the vinyl a little better. Before you start laying on the adhesive, take your material, lay it over the area that you're going to be applying it to, and just make sure that you have everything trimmed properly to measurement. You don't want it too big, because then you're going to have to start trimming as, you know, there's already adhesive on there. And also you don't want it too short, because then it's not going to look as good as obviously you want it to. So anyways, test fit a few times before you actually apply the adhesive. And once you do start applying the adhesive, don't go crazy on it, because if you do make it too wet and you start laying the material itself, it's going to go right through the material and it's going to look really bad. So go in light coats, layer by layer, and also section by section. So I would do one section at a time in the first part of the, let's say, the right side of the door. I would tuck it in. Once I know I'm ready and it's cured, I would go over and then started applying a little more. But also at the same time, when I did start on that right side, what I did is I applied the adhesive. I gave it about 30 seconds to a minute, and I really didn't want it to be wet at all. I actually wanted to just be a little drier and stickier. Then you gently lay the material on and then go on from there. Now once you've laid the material on, I ended up using a back of a razor. You can use something like a plastic edge or even possibly a butter knife, but you do want something that's got like a little round groove. So anything that will help you get right in that corner, make sure your edges are really pushed in there. And also when you're taking off the tape as well, make sure your rounded tip of a razor or a butter knife or whatever, even a flathead might damage the material itself, so just be cautious of that. But anyways, use the back of that as you're pulling tape, because at the beginning I tried using nothing and I was sort of pulling the material itself. That's when I switched over and just used the back of the razor. Now, with any imperfections that you've seen, any little specks of glue or adhesive that you've noticed on your material, don't freak out, nothing to worry about. Let it dry before you start wiping it off, because if it's wet, it's gonna smudge and make a bigger mess. Let it dry, it's easier to clean up and easier to also pick up. Alright guys, hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope you guys are all also, of course, staying safe and staying home during a crazy time period in our lives right now. But anyways, make the best out of it, work on your cars, and we'll get through this together. Anyways, if you guys like this video, click like, and if you guys want to keep up with the most recent videos, subscribe. It helps a lot. Alright, stay tuned.